Hello, good morning from me. You're watching the News Hour. It's just gone 6 o'clock. Shocking news of Heath Ledger's death late last night in New York. We're live there and to Hollywood in just a little while.
Also on the News Hour, the Governor of the Bank of England tells us it could be the toughest year since 1997, but markets around the world have rallied. What is going on?
And what's going on with the weather? Here's Andrea.
Not very much today, John, which is a good thing. Good morning. We're seeing a lot of patchy rain and drizzle, but generally today it's just going to be a grey day with some fairly light rain around. I think the best chance really of seeing any kind of sunshine will be across the East Midlands and across into East Anglia. I think the heaviest of the rain today will be across Scotland. And as you can see, the winds are going to increase as well. There will be a key feature of our weather today. It's very, very mild temperature-wise. As you can see, that's across the board as well. Even Scotland, which has seen colder temperatures recently, you'll be getting into double figures. I'll give you a full rundown, though, in 20 minutes.
Thanks very much, Andrea. Our top story today, the Brokeback Mountain star Heath Ledger has been found dead in his New York apartment. Police say the 28-year-old's death appears to be drug-related. Well, we'll have got Carla Romano now in Los Angeles. Carla, I mean, obviously, shock.
More than shock, disbelief. I mean, we could bandy about as many cliches as you want. It's all people here are talking about. Such a young life cut short. Heath Ledger was only 28 years old. His body was discovered yesterday afternoon. It is rumoured that there was a drugs overdose. That's what caused it. He was discovered by his housekeeper and a masseuse. Sarah Moore was on the scene, and this is her report.
Hundreds of people crowded around Hollywood star Heath Ledger's Manhattan apartment. Police guarded the door as medical teams came in and out before taking his body from his home. The Oscar-nominated actor had been found by his housekeeper just hours before, unconscious at the foot of his bed. Police say there were prescription drugs close to him, including some sleeping pills, but at this stage they won't say anything else. They're hoping results of a post-mortem examination expected later today will give them more answers. Outside his home, fans have already begun to pay tribute to the Hollywood star.
It's not like you hear about him with drugs all the time or anything. It's not a face you see in the tabloids. Like, private life was very private.
He was respected for his talent, and that is all. Like, it's just a shock, and it's really sad.
I think more than anything else, Penny, people are very shocked here because Heath Ledger wasn't a party kind of guy. He wasn't one of the Hollywood wild boys. Family man, doting dad to his 2-year-old daughter, Matilda. Specifically wanted them all to live in New York because he did not want his family growing up in the Hollywood bubble. Hollywood is reeling, losing their rising star, and believe me, Heath Ledger really was their rising star, kind of a James Dean of their generation. And if Hollywood is reeling, imagine how his parents must feel. Very close to his family was Heath Ledger. He even had his mum and his sister's initials tattooed on his wrist. Well, this is what they had to say just a short while ago.
We, Heath's family, confirm the very tragic, untimely and accidental passing of our dearly loved son, brother and doting father of Matilda. He was a down-to-earth, generous, kind-hearted, life-loving, unselfish individual who was extremely inspirational to many. Please now respect our family's need to grieve and come to terms with our loss privately. Thank you.
28 years old, the prime of his life, with a career, Penny, about to explode. It's just incredibly sad.
Carla, thanks very much.
Let's catch up on the rest of the news. Here's Priya.
Thanks, John. Good morning. Up to 20,000 police officers from every force in England and Wales are expected in London today to stage a protest march and rally over their pay award. Elaine Wilcox is in Liverpool, where hundreds of officers are about to leave for the capital. Elaine.
Yes, good morning. This is expected to be the biggest police protest in a decade. As you say, 400 police officers have chartered a train to join this mass protest here from Liverpool. They're not allowed to be in uniform. They're all going to be wearing these hats which says fair play to the police. With me is Catherine Kane from the Police Federation. What's at the heart of this dispute?
This is not about the figures. This is about a binding arbitration decision of which the Home Secretary has not ratified, and officers are extremely angry.
Now, the Home Secretary is not likely to back down. She has said you've had very generous pay awards in the past, 10% above inflation. This has to happen to stop inflation. That makes economic sense, doesn't it?
What the Home Secretary is saying is quite untrue. We've already seen awards to teachers and to some of our police support colleagues, which are over-inflation prices, over-inflation wage increases. And the Bank of England have said that up to 4% will not fuel inflation. It's nonsense what she's saying.
OK, well, thanks for joining us. You've got a train to catch, 20,000 police officers on the streets of London. You've heard the real anger here. Now back to the studio.
Elaine, thank you. A 14-year-old schoolgirl remains critically ill this morning after being repeatedly stabbed. Jessica Knight was attacked as she walked through a park in Chorley in Lancashire. Police say it was unprovoked and are appealing for witnesses to come forward. The only survivor of the crash which killed Princess Diana will give evidence today at the inquest into her death. Former bodyguard Trevor Rees says he remembers getting into the front seat of the car but has no memory of the actual crash. A simple food labelling system is one of the keys to tackling obesity. It's part of a range of measures being unveiled by ministers today to combat the problem. Compulsory cooking lessons and new investment in cycle tracks are also part of the strategy. Young people are binge drinking at an increasingly young age. A national poll of youngsters aged between 10 and 19 found that more than 40% started drinking before they were 13. A look at what's on our website this morning. A fifth of office workers want to quit their jobs because of untidy colleagues. Do you approve of having children before marriage? You can vote in our online poll. And join nutritionist Amanda Hamilton for a healthy cooking session on Inchloss Island at 9:30. All that and more on GM.TV. It's just gone 7 minutes past 6. Now back to John.
Thanks very much indeed, Priya. Time for some sport, and Spurs are on their way to Wembley after a fantastic victory over Arsenal last night. That's the back page of the Daily Express this morning. 5-star Spurs, and boy, oh boy, have they waited for that. 8 years since they last beat Arsenal. Nuts. That's a reference to the fact that some of the Arsenal players were so frustrated they started hitting each other. Clive Allen often smiles. He never smiles quite so much as he did this morning. That was a great victory for you all, lads, wasn't it?
It was absolutely sensational. We played well. We should have brought a lead from the first leg, but certainly the performance last night was unbelievable. Second minute, Jermaine Jennings puts us in the lead, and even at that stage, John, you just wonder, is it too early? Although it was a fine strike and it got us on our way. And then Nicholas Bentner, although challenged by Michael Dawson, actually turns it into his own net. You see here. Dorsey's trying to claim it, but unfortunately it is an own goal, but a second one and a fantastic lead. And then, for me, this was the one that wrapped the game up for us. Robbie Keane scored his 100th at the weekend, his 101st, and 3-0 up, and that was really... the floodgates opened. Lennon added the 4th, and it was a rare victory of this kind, but an absolutely wonderful one to send us to the final. Steve Malbranc wrapping it up with a 5th.
Fantastic. Now, my colleague has a point to make.
Yes, I was talking to some Arsenal fans this morning, and they said that the problem was that Arsenal were fielding a young side, a trainee side.
Yes, that's
true. They were trying to bring on the youngsters.
Yes, they've been doing that for many a game in this competition, and actually quite a lot of their youngsters have a lot of experience having played in the Carling Cup.
Most of their youngsters could be any team in the league, actually, I have to say. And in fact, you have to bear in mind, they have got to the semi-final with those same youngsters. So, you know,
got to the final last year.
So. Now, Spurs have had a difficult start to the season, to put it mildly. What's this going to do? I mean, spirit-wise, how does it lift their spirits?
It is amazing. Obviously, the atmosphere at the club last night, it was a massive hoodoo. And at the end, you can see the lads celebrating along with the supporters, who I have to say have waited a very, very long time for an evening like this.
All down to the new man, all down to Ramos?
He's made a massive impact on the side, and obviously I think the results recently have proved. I think we've tightened up defensively, and with the options we have up front, we're always capable of scoring a lot of goals, which we did last night.
He did indeed, and of course Arsenal, two of the Arsenal players, I said, finished up scrapping each other. Now, you face either Everton or Chelsea in the final. We'll find out. Which of the two do you fear most?
I think you have to fear Everton. Sorry, Chelsea. I'm all mixed up, John.
Yes, you're allowed. You've had 2 hours sleep, you forgive me.
I think Chelsea, obviously, are very, very strong, and I think that they will progress tonight to make it an all-London final.
We wish you well. Good to see you, Clive. Thanks very much indeed for coming, particularly bearing in mind not have much kip. And congratulations to George Burley. Maybe a little ahead of time. We think he's going to be announced as the new Scotland manager later today. Penny.
Time is 10 minutes past 6 for most of us. Taking these is what you need if you've got a bit of a cough or even a lot of a cough. But are we wasting our time? Well, according to research published today, there is no strong evidence that cough medicines do any good. I'm joined by Dr. Hilary Jones. Well,
Academic doctors have been saying for years we shouldn't use cough medicines because they're a combination, a cocktail of different things, and there's no strong evidence that they actually do any good. And this research says the same thing. It looks at 25 different studies looking at coughs in children and adults. It comes to the conclusion most of the time they're not very good for us. We might as well take some honey or a hot grog. Something that doesn't have these powerful ingredients in. Now,
just before you go any further, powerful ingredients such as?
Such as antihistamine, such as codeine, fulcodine, things which are used as antitussives to stop a dry cough, expectorants to get rid of a cough which is productive of a lot of phlegm. But there are different reasons for coughing. Some people cough because they've got a bit of asthma and their airways are tight and in spasm. Some people cough because they've got a lot of phlegm. Some people cough because the epiglottis, the flap of tissue,
the little flappy
that
thing,
stops you inhaling food and making it go down the windpipe instead, that can become inflamed and cause irritation there, the vocal cords. So actually it's important to choose the right type of linctus if you're going to use one. And I would say, from my experience in general practice, that sometimes cough linctuses can be quite useful. In theory, a cocktail of drugs isn't going to work. Codeine is a strong medicine. You have to give an awful lot of it to suppress a dry cough, and therefore you can't give enough in a safe dosage. Now, I would agree with that. But if you've got a child with a very runny nose, swallowing a lot of that mucus and coughing as a result, an antihistamine can be very, very useful. So I think it's all very well to look at research.
So then in that case, why not just take an antihistamine instead of taking cough medicine?
Well, perhaps you're right. But some people do say that taking simple linctus for children, which is really just syrup, there's no active ingredient, does seem to have a soothing effect on the windpipe. So I think the research is one thing, but in practice, I think a lot of doctors would say there's still a place for this, and there's still a place for pharmacists advising people about these kind of medicines.
Because the body representing cough medicine says these products are effective, and decades of use by millions of customers can't be wrong.
I think there's an element of truth in that. If millions of people have taken these for donkey's years and say they do seem to work, we have to listen to that voice.
And after all, as we know, placebos work even as well.
Placebos work in 25% of cases, but some of these things have ingredients which really have a good function, and if we treat symptoms of everything else, why don't we treat symptoms for a cough?
I keep hearing John Stapleton having a cough, actually. We might be going to
It's over here right now.
Dose you up.
He's trying to draw attention to himself.
We want to know what works for you when you get a cough. Honey? Any other suggestions? Text us on 67890. Text costs 25 pence plus your standard network charge. Terms and conditions can be found on gm.tv/terms, and text may also appear on the website. Sorry, we're going to say something else.
A drop of the wee malt.
Right,
always
okay.
works
Thank
for
you very
me.
much. John, suggestion.
Thanks very much, Dee. 30 minutes past 6 is the time. Very good morning to you if you're just joining us. These are headlines you're waking up to today. The Brokeback Mountain star Heath Ledger has been found dead in his New York apartment. Police say the 28-year-old's death appears to be drug-related. Mel Gibson called it a tragic loss. Up to 20,000 police officers are expected in London this morning for a mass march and rally in protest over pay. And the only survivor of the crash which killed Princess Diana, the former bodyguard, Trevor Rees, will give evidence today at the inquest into her death. Well, as I indicated, later this morning, up to 20,000 police officers will descend on London to protest over their lower-than-inflation pay offer. PC Wayne Veal is in central London this morning, ahead of many, many more, I'm sure. Good to see you, Wayne. Thanks very much indeed for getting up to talk to us. Why are you there?
Good morning, John. We'll be here basically to get fair play for police officers. Basically, for the last 28 years, we've been guaranteed a pay rise every year. For the last 2 years, it's gone to arbitration, and basically now the government have gone back on what was agreed in September. Basically, we put ourselves on lives online every day of the week, 24/7, as soon as we step out the front door. We just basically like to be paid for what we do and put our lives on the line, and for fair play.
What do you say to those who argue that they're very sympathetic, but they say, well, you know, you are better off than most of the people in the emergency services?
Yeah, I understand that. Emergency services, obviously, they've got pay rises, but again, they can go on strike, they can go round a table, they can talk about pay rises, they can disagree and agree. Unfortunately, police officers are not allowed to go on strike. It's a criminal, it's against the law, basically. So the only way we can do it is obviously to do this march today.
Ever sensed a feeling like this in the police service? I don't know how long you've been a police officer, but ever experienced anything like this before?
Sorry, what did you say, John? Sorry.
I said, have you ever sensed a feeling like this within the police service before?
No, I think morale at the moment is an all-time low, and it's due to the fact that obviously the pay increase has been turned down by the government, even after, as I say, we went to arbitration. OK, Wayne, wish you well. Thanks very much, Dee, for being with us. Your chair, Jan Berry, is with us from the Police Federation. Good morning to you, Jan.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Everyone, I'm sure, is very sympathetic towards the police, most people anyway. But the government would point out that since 1997, constables, anyway, have had a 36% increase, which is 10% above inflation. They've done pretty well.
Well, I mean, the statistics don't actually mirror what the Home Office is saying. In fact, over the same period, you could argue that MPs have had 41%. Trading figures is not what we're talking about here. I don't think you can compare the police officer's job with any other part of the emergency service, because we all do slightly different jobs, and we've got slightly different conditions that need to be taken into account. What's happened here is that we went to arbitration. It's binding arbitration, and yet the trust has been broken of police officers because the government have not honoured what the arbiters said.
Because Gordon Brown said that would be an inflation-busting rise.
Well,
and it's in the interest of society to keep it down.
Well, he does come out with this line, but the Bank of England don't agree with him. Most of the MPs in Parliament don't agree with him. And if you look across the public, even if you look across the public sector, most people have had more than 3.5%. during the last year. It's hidden up in different ways because there's anything but transparency in how pay deals within the public sector actually work.
As well as this march today, which is, as far as I know, is unprecedented in terms of its number, anticipated numbers anyway, up to 20,000 people. You're going to see Jackie Smith, the Home Secretary, with whom you've been at loggerheads over this in a big, big way. How do you characterise the relationship between you and her today?
I think it's pretty fraught, to be perfectly honest. Our last meeting was fairly acrimonious, and that's not by nature. That's not me. I want to be able to sort things out. I want to resolve it. And most cops, we're there to solve people's problems, not to make the problems.
So, are you anticipating any light at the end of the tunnel today?
We have to, at some stage, get back around a negotiating table. But it's got to be negotiations, and there's got to be give and take on both sides. Tremendous pressure on the government, right from the time the decision was made. MPs disagree with it, the media disagree with it, the public disagree with it. They haven't budged.
But certainly, you know, they would argue, in fairness to them, we're going to talk to Tony McNulty, the police minister, a little bit later on. They have a public duty to keep inflation down. It's not that they're spiteful against the police officers. They're very mindful of what you do. That's all they're trying to do.
Well, I would argue with that, because when the nurses balloted to go on strike, they got round the table, they found some more money, they just manoeuvred the deal around. They haven't done any of that for this.
Work to rule for your guys and girls?
We can't do it. It's against the law. If I was to suggest it, if they were to do it, they commit a criminal offence, they can go to prison.
So not only they can't strike, they can't even work to rule?
No.
Yeah. So, deadlock.
It is, and we've got to break that deadlock, and it just needs some movement, a little bit of chink of light. Promising jam tomorrow, which Jackie Smith is hoping will sort it out. He's not going to resolve it because, you know, police officers have got some unfinished business for what they did last year, and that's got to be resolved.
Jan, thanks very much indeed for being with us. Love to know your thoughts on this one. You can get in touch via our website, usual place, gm.tv. Good to see you, Jan.
Lots more to come on the news hour, including all the weather information from Andrea. And in 20 minutes' time, a nervous time for all matters financial. Is a world recession now unstoppable? As the Governor of the Bank of England warns it'll be the worst year since '97.
Yes, and Michelle Morrison has been donning her penny.
Yes, good morning. Well, it seems like over the years our views on family and relationships have changed quite significantly. But unfortunately, ladies, when it comes to housework, well, our attitudes are still stuck in the 1960s. Join me after the break for more.
.22. Good morning to you. You are waking up to a more tolerant and liberal Britain. That is according to the latest British Social Attitude Survey, which has been recording our views for the last 24 years on everything from family life to race. Michelle Morrison has more.
When it comes to family life, only 1 in 4 of us now believe married couples make better parents than unmarried ones. And 2/3 think there's no difference socially between being married and just living together. Some things have also changed in the household.
In the past, one believed it was the husband's job to go out and earn a crust. But today, just 17% of us think that's the case. But it doesn't get women off the hook altogether, because 77% of them still do most of the housework chores. So, looks like nothing has changed there then, chaps.
Thoroughly modern man, Quentin Letts, joins me now. Good morning.
You've got the wrong man. It's a mistake.
You've got to try and defend yourself now. Come on.
No, I'm not. I think it's interesting, these statistics,
Yes.
and it's not really surprising, is it, if we're becoming more tolerant, or this definition of tolerant that we have, because...
More liberal.
Yeah, because the whole apparat of the media has been bashing the British public over the head for the last 40 years and spreading attitudes, teaching attitudes, a more effective way than the Roman Catholic Church ever did in the medieval times. So, at last, the British people seem to have been taking notice of this. And, for instance, only 1/3 of us are now twitchy about gays. Well, that really doesn't surprise me.
No, and also about sort of, you know, sex before marriage, about...
The only statistic going to the more reactionary standpoint in the last 20 years has been our attitude to the poor. That seems to be... We seem to be less tolerant now of the poor, and we think the government's doing perhaps a bit too much for the poor compared to what 20 years ago, as far as I can see from this survey.
Anything else that you noticed?
Well, the
on
poor,
that?
you ladies are having to... You're not only... Women's rights has been a great success because you're now able to work, you're able to present TV programmes and everything like that, but you also still have to do all the housework.
Yes, we
So you've got
can
a rather
have it
bad,
all. You see, I don't know why we're complaining.
a nation of hard-working skivvies. So that's really bad luck. Feminism seems to have backfired a bit in that. But I think it is interesting to bear in mind that we still have, don't we, all these support groups which are supported by the government for sort of gay rights and to sort of ethnic grievance industry is given masses of money by the nation. Well, hang on, if our attitudes have changed, what's the point of all these gay rights groups? We don't need them anymore.
No, exactly. Do away with it. Do
Perhaps we
away
ought
with
to have them
with all
supporting
those.
right-wing points of view.
And you mentioned about the fact that, you know, it's all to, you know, a part of it is to do with the media, and yet the newspaper reading public has shrunk hugely.
Well, allegedly.
It says here,
I mean,
allegedly.
newspaper buying public. Maybe more people are reading copies. But, well, I think it's also to do with the great wash of age. I mean, attitudes change with generations. And, for instance, what is it? Only... very, very few people now think that rumpy-pumpy before marriage is wrong. Well, I think that's undoubtedly to do with
Is
people...
rumpy-pumpy part of the new liberal thinking?
This is why we're worried that we've got the wrong guest.
Children may be watching. I'm sure they are, and paying attention. But no, I think that's to do with people, different attitudes, and it's not just the rotten old newspapers, is it? It's television and it's films and it's the whole apparat of the media.
And you think is an accurate snapshot of Britain?
I think it probably is, and it makes me feel very ancient.
Quentin Letts, thank you very much. Do you think we have become more liberal in Britain? Let us know your views. Email us gm.tv.
Let's get a snapshot of the weather right now when we illuminate her. Here she is. Good to see you.
Let's take a look.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Nestle Shredded Wheat. Shredded wheat and hot milk. They're a perfect winter warm-up.
Hello, more of the same. Here we go again. Cloudy day across the British Isles. What we're going to be seeing is grey skies across pretty much everywhere during the course of today. Now, we do have some rain around. At the moment, you can see it's just across northern Scotland. Sort of got 2 bands of rain that are going to be affecting us during the course of today, but this is the main one. It's currently over mainly northern Scotland, and it will be moving its way northwards as well. So if you're waking up in the Shetland Isles and it's not raining where you are, I'm afraid it will be raining at some point later on. So for this morning, it's a grey, drizzly start for many. This is where the heaviest of the rain is, as I pointed out. Any sunshine really at a premium. You're going to be very lucky if you manage to spot it this morning. It's going to be across the Midlands and into East Anglia. Now, as we go into this afternoon, we'll start off with Scotland. As I say, that main area of rain will move its way northwards. So, again, the Shetland Isles, you've got a grey and wet afternoon in store for you. Bits and pieces of brightness managing to work its way through this afternoon. But the winds will also increase as well, especially across the Western Isles. We could well see gusts of up to 50 miles per hour. So it is going to be very windy across Scotland generally through today. Now, we've also got another area of rain. It's going to be affecting southern Scotland, eventually sinking southwards into northwestern parts of England. So you can see there around the Lake District into the Manchester region. Always drier and brighter out to the east, so you can see here for the East Midlands, still a fairly grey day, it has to be said, but you could see bits and pieces of sunshine around. Grey, drizzly and wet for the south and west. That also includes Wales as well. You can see the winds really starting to pick up. We are going to be seeing some fairly keen winds across the whole of the British Isles today. A grey afternoon expected for Northern Ireland, and again, we will see some outbreaks of rain here. But it has to be said, the wind's coming from a very mild direction, so temperatures generally will be mild today. Now, overnight, nothing mild about this. Temperatures plummeting. We could well see a little bit of frost across parts of Scotland through today. And then we will see an area of rain moving in overnight tonight. Now, what that will bring is snow over parts of Scotland, mainly over the higher ground, but not necessarily exclusively so. Some lower levels could well see a bit of a dusting as well. And whoops, just move out the way. There you can see for Thursday, we do have a bit of a wintry start for northern parts. Here's your summary. Get a 5-day weather update for your postcode on our website, gm.tv.
Good morning, 6:28 is Wednesday, the 23rd of January.
Yes, you're watching the News Hour on GMTV. Coming up in the next half hour, tributes for the actor Heath Ledger, who died last night in his New York apartment. We report from Hollywood.
Hunting for a vicious knife man, the shocking stabbing of a 14-year-old girl in Chorley. We'll have the latest from police.
And markets have rallied since America cut its interest rates, but the Governor of the Bank of England says that financially speaking, it's going to be the worst year since 1997. Our top story this morning, the Brokeback Mountain star Heath Ledger has been found dead in his apartment in New York. Police say the 28-year-old's death appears to be drug-related. Sarah Moore is in New York for us. What more can you tell us, Sarah?
Well, good morning, John. It's news that so many people will be waking up to this morning, shocked and stunned. Heath Ledger was one of Hollywood's most private stars. He kept himself to himself, and that's why the news that his death at just 28 years old comes as such a shock. This report now does contain some flash photography. Hundreds of people crowded around Hollywood star Heath Ledger's Manhattan apartment. Police guarded the door as medical teams came in and out before taking his body from his home. The Oscar-nominated actor had been found by his housekeeper just hours before, unconscious at the foot of his bed. Police say there were prescription drugs close to him, including some sleeping pills, but at this stage, they won't say anything else. They're hoping results of a post-mortem examination expected later today will give them more answers. Outside his home, fans have already begun to pay tribute to the Hollywood star.
It's not like you hear about him with drugs all the time or anything. It's not a face you see in the tabloids. Like, private life was very private.
He was respected for his talent, and that is all. Like, it's just a shock, and it's really sad.
Heath Ledger is originally from Australia. His family is still there, and they've spoken out and said the police have told them that they think it is accidental. This is what his father, Kim Ledger, had to say.
We, Heath's family, confirm the very tragic, untimely and accidental passing of our dearly loved son, brother and doting father of Matilda. He was a down-to-earth, generous, kind-hearted, life-loving, unselfish individual who was extremely inspirational to many. Please now respect our family's need to grieve and come to terms with our loss privately. Thank you.
His former partner, Michelle Williams, is travelling back to New York from Sweden at the moment with their daughter, Matilda. We're also waiting for the results of a post-mortem examination. We should have those later today.
Sarah, thanks very much indeed.
The time is 6:31. Let's get this morning's other news stories now from Priya.
Thank you, Penny. Good morning. Up to 20,000 police officers from every force in England and Wales are expected in London today to stage a protest march and rally over their pay award. Elaine Wilcox is in Liverpool, where hundreds of officers are about to leave for the capital. Good morning, Elaine.
Yes, good morning, Priya. This is expected to be the biggest police protest in a decade. As you say, 400 off-duty officers here in Liverpool have just boarded a train bound for the capital to join this mass protest. There's real anger here. This is what it's all about. They're not allowed to wear their uniforms, they're not allowed to strike, but they are going to be wearing these caps which says fair pay, fair play for the police. There's real anger over the government's decision not to backdate their pay award, which was negotiated by an independent body. Now, Jackie Smith, the Home Secretary, is refusing to back down. She points to a 36% increase in police pay in the last decade. She says the police have done very well, and she says they have to keep this below inflation. But there's real anger. 20,000 police officers on the streets of the capital to show their anger at this decision. Now back to you.
Elaine, thank you. A 14-year-old schoolgirl remains critically ill this morning after being repeatedly stabbed. Jessica Knight was attacked as she walked through a park in Chorley in Lancashire. Police say it was an unprovoked attack and are appealing for witnesses to come forward. The only survivor of the crash which killed Princess Diana will give evidence today at the inquest into her death. Former bodyguard Trevor Rees says he remembers getting into the front seat of the car but has no memory of the actual crash. Ministers say that simple food labelling system is one of the keys to tackling obesity. It's part of a range of measures being unveiled today to combat the problem. Anna Thomas reports.
Obesity in Britain has tripled over the last 20 years. 2/3 of adults are now overweight and it's costing the NHS billions. The Healthy Weight, Healthy Lives campaign will tackle the problem on several key fronts: diet, exercise and consumer knowledge.
So here I've got a selection of ready meals from some of the country's biggest supermarket chains, and as you can see, the nutritional information on each one is really quite different, and I've no way of knowing how they compare or which is healthier for me. The government wants a clear, standard system of food labelling across the board so we all know what we're eating no matter where we shop.
Children are the primary target. 1/3 of them are overweight. So compulsory cooking lessons and healthy packed lunch policies are back on the menu, along with a curb on fast food outlets located near schools. And for the rest of us, £140 million will be spent improving cycle tracks in a bid to put the brakes on what the government is calling the obesity epidemic.
Non-prescription cough medicines could be a waste of money, according to new research. It found that there was no strong evidence that over-the-counter cough syrups did any good. Around £100 million is spent on bottles of cough mixture in Britain every year. Look at some sport, and Tottenham have booked their place in the Carling Cup final. They beat local rivals Arsenal 5-1. That's 6-2 on aggregate. It was their first victory against the Gunners in 9 years. Look at what's on our website this morning. 1/5 of office workers want to quit their jobs because of untidy colleagues. Do you approve of having children before marriage? You can vote in our online poll. And join nutritionist Amanda Hamilton for a healthy cooking session on Inchos Island at 9:30. All that and more on GM.TV. Now then, still to come, is a cut in British interest rates on the way. We'll have the latest from the world stock markets. First, though, here's what's happening where you are.
Thanks, Priya. Good morning. The main stories here in the northwest. A 14-year-old girl who was stabbed in a frenzied attack in Lancashire remains in a stable but critical condition in hospital. A huge operation's underway to find the person who attacked Jessica Knight in Astley Village at around 5:15 on Monday evening. She was found with multiple injuries and needed extensive surgery. Police are appealing for witnesses and advising local people to remain on their guard.
Yes, you should be worried, but as I said before, you know, this area isn't known to be a violent area. In fact, crime in this area has actually gone down. But until we find whoever is responsible for this, then people should take extra precautions.
2 children and their mother have been rescued from an upstairs bedroom of a house fire in Bolton this morning. Fire crews were called to Charlesworth Avenue in Great Lever at midnight by an 11-year-old girl. A pan of food caught fire, leaving the girl, her 10-year-old brother and their mother trapped upstairs. They were taken to hospital suffering from shock. Hundreds of police officers from across the region are to march in London today in protest at the government's refusal to backdate a pay award. It's estimated that between 10 and 15,000 officers from across the country will attend the demonstration. They claim the failure not to backdate their pay breaches a previous agreement. Tributes are being paid to a promising footballer who was murdered as he waited for food at a takeaway in Manchester. 20-year-old Hulton McCollin died yesterday, 3 days after being shot at the China Garden takeaway on Chester Road in Stratford. His football club, Flixton FC, say he'll be missed.
He was a very good footballer. I thought he had a big future, and he was just getting his head down, he said. And he wanted, like I said, he's got 2 friends who play at Bury. and he wanted to play as high as he could.
Justice Secretary Jack Straw will be presented with the results of a lie detector test on Liverpool fan Michael Shields later. His supporters claim the fact he passed the test proves he's innocent of the attempted murder of a Bulgarian man in 2005. They're hoping recent changes in the law will help their case. Finally, it's the night many Spice Girls fans have been waiting for as the group play their first gig here in Manchester in almost 10 years. Posh, Ginger, Sporty, Scary and Baby take to the stage at the Manchester Arena as part of the UK leg of their world tour. The girls will perform 3 nights here. That's it now. I'm back at 7:05. In a moment we return to GMTV, but first a look at the region's weather.
Pantene Pro V Winter Rescue. Forecasting a great hair day, whatever the weather. Sponsors of GMTV Weather.
It's 6:38. Let's have a quick look at the front pages, and the Daily Mirror has that story on the front page. Heath Ledger, who died last night in New York. The Daily Mail has this horrible story about the internet suicide cult, is what they're querying. Chilling links between 7 youngsters found hanged in the same town. The Sun has more on Amy Winehouse, and the Daily Express says that Iraq's Deputy Prime Minister visited a mosque in Blackburn and said Britain's Muslims are too extreme.
Thanks very much, Dee, for all your suggestions about cough remedies. Wayne in Coventry has contacted us saying that a bit of hot toddy helps. I think I think I should have read hot toddy, but there we go.
Hot toddy.
I'll go with your suggestion,
yeah.
Wayne.
Yeah.
I'm going with you, mate. Maureen says drink the juice of an onion and brown sugar that's been soaking overnight. And interestingly, Rebecca...
Quite nice.
Yeah, very nice. I've always used tea with lemon and a spoon of honey. It works much better than expensive medicine. So keep them coming. Thanks very much.
The time is 6:39. Nervousness today as traders wait to see whether the cut in American interest rates will continue to stem massive falls on the financial markets. It came after major financial turbulence across the world. The US central bank is desperately trying to stop the country slumping into recession. Will it work, though? Well, to give us some idea is Wall Street expert Anne Lee in New York, and we're joined here by money expert David Quo to tell us what it means for us. First, good morning to you both. Anne, will this rate cut stop a threatened recession, do you think?
It would help, possibly, but not totally. I think I'm more worried about stagflation than recession. I know that a lot of people are worried about recession, and quite frankly, the credit markets have been shut down for a few months now, but a rate cut isn't going to fix all those problems that got us here in the first place.
Why is a recession being talked about? I mean, what has actually created this rumour, really, about recession?
It's a very complex situation, but essentially what has happened in the last few years is that there's been lots of easy credit throughout the world, meaning that everyone can get a loan very easily. So when you have a lot of easy money, a lot of bad loans are made. And the subprime mortgages is one prime example of how that happened. Banks basically made a lot of bad loans, and they developed a technique called securitization, where they bundled up hundreds, thousands, millions of these loans and sold them to other investors, whether they're pension funds or insurance companies, all kinds of large investors. And what happened is that a lot of these people should not have had the loan in the first place. And so they were defaulting on these loans, and these large institutions that are holding these dodgy investments are realizing they're not getting paid back. Okay, and so they're basically...
Sorry, and
yes.
Just stay with us just for a moment, because we've got David Quo here just talking about what it means for us. I mean, Mervyn King, the Governor of the Bank of England, saying that this could be the trickiest year since 1997, when, of course, it was Black Tuesday.
Yes. Well, he's absolutely right. I think it's going to be a very, very tricky year. I think something that Anne didn't touch on was, of course, the economies here in the West, certainly in the UK and America, relies on consumer spending. Effectively, here in the UK, the economy relies, two-thirds of the economy relies on us going out spending money.
But we're being told not to spend money at the moment.
Well, I'm telling you not to spend money, yeah. And I'm telling lots of people not to spend money because you have to look after yourself before you look after the high streets. But effectively, what it really means is that it's getting more difficult for people to get credit cards. So you apply for a credit card and you might find you are turned down. You apply for a loan and you could be turned down. So effectively, people haven't got that kind of cheap money that Anne was talking about.
But why does that have a knock-on effect on the economy, though?
Well, the reason is because if we don't spend money, it means that the shops aren't doing very well. The shops start to buy less goods. They don't buy from the factories. The factories don't need as many workers. Then you actually go into this recession.
But we hardly make anything in this country anymore, do we?
Well, we import a lot of stuff, and we do export a lot of stuff also. But I think, you know, money needs to keep going around, and if people put their money in their pockets, it means that, or if people can't get hold of money, it just simply means that we can't spend money. One of the problems is that we spent a lot of money on our credit cards before, and this is something that I think, you know, has to stop. But what the Bank of England is trying to do, of course, is to try and cut interest rates, and I think they will be cutting interest rates in February, if not before. I think they will follow suit. And then what will then happen is they're hoping that mortgages will come down, your repayments will come down, you'll have a bit more money in your pocket to spend, and then you will go out and start spending that cash again.
We have to leave it there. David Coe and Anne Lee in New York, thank you both very much for joining us this morning.
Time now 17 minutes to 7. The family of a 14-year-old girl who was stabbed 30 times during a frenzied knife attack are due to make a statement later this morning. Jessica Knight was attacked in Astley Park in Chorley on Monday afternoon and remains in a critical condition in hospital. Chief Superintendent Irene Curtis joins us now from Chorley. Irene, thanks very much for being with us. I gather there has been a development. Can you tell me about that?
There has, yes. I'm pleased to say that there's been a positive development overnight in that we have a 21-year-old man in custody in relation to this offence. It's still very early stages yet, and clearly we're not sure that this is in fact the offender in this case, but we've got somebody in custody and the investigation will obviously be progressing throughout today. Good to hear. Thank you very much indeed. What sort of area is this? This is very much a semi-rural area of Chorley. It's a village-type area. The area of the park where Jessica was attacked is very much a family area. It's where people come and walk the dogs, people cycle, people walk the families for regular walks, and at 5 o'clock at night it's a very popular thoroughfare for people in the area. The whole community is incredibly shocked by this offence, and I can quite understand that because it is extremely rare. Violent crime in the Chorley area is down almost 18% this year, and we've done a lot of work with our partners to make sure that we make people feel as safe as we possibly can. So it's really disappointing for something like this to happen, and as I say, it is extremely unusual. My priority at the current time is to reassure the communities as best we can and try and get this community back to some sense of normality. I'm sure it is, and I'm sure you will. Irene, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Shadow Home Secretary David Davis joins me now to talk about, another matter, criminal matter actually, but first of all, a response to that. Shocking incident, but as Irene was saying, you've got to bear in mind, these incidents are still very rare.
Well, tragically, I mean, firstly, I mustn't comment on a case in process.
No, but in general, I'm talking about.
But the, I mean, and awful that it's happening in a what you would think was a quiet, semi-rural area. But of course, the trouble is, across the country, it isn't rare. That's the difficulty. We have seen event after event after event like this. Tragic crimes, murders even, often with drugs implicated, often with drink implicated, certainly always with weapons. I mean, we've lost control of drink, drugs and weapons on our streets.
Well, the government argue they're not lost control. The government concede they've got a problem. But certainly there is a report out this morning from an organisation called Crime Concern, which actually indicates that a lot of the trouble we've seen on the streets is drink-related, is down to binge drinking, particularly amongst young people, 10 to 19-year-olds.
Yeah, certainly recently. I mean, you've got half of 10 to 19-year-olds saying they've been involved in violence of one sort or another as a result of drink. Sometimes you have drugs implicated too, you get a terrible, almost lethal cocktail of the two. And as I say, when you get knives and guns also available, too available as they are now, you get the sort of tragedies we've had in the last few years. Now, what's happened is that since the 24-hour drinking change, this has all got worse. You now find more crimes in the middle of the night. You find more youngsters admitted to A&E with alcohol problems. You see all sorts of
But all that can't be laid at the door of the government, can it, David? I mean, you know, you've got shopkeepers. 50% of these cases, according to this report anyway, are down to shopkeepers selling booze to kids underage. 50% of the parents either condone or don't bother about the fact that their kids are coming home rotten drunk. I mean, it's not all the government's fault. It's a national epidemic, isn't it?
Listen, I mean, this is a social problem to be dealt with from beginning to end, from broken families, through school discipline, through what happens on the streets, through not enough police visible, the whole thing from beginning to end. But we have to face the fact that under the government, frankly, violent crime, not all crime, but violent crime has doubled. Drug crime has gone up. Drink crime has gone up. Now, in the last couple of years, whoever was in charge. No, it wouldn't have happened whoever was in charge. I mean, much of this is about doing the conventional job properly. It's not about fancy initiatives and so on. It's about having the police on the streets. It's about enforcing the law. And it's about not going in for things like 24-hour drinking. You talk quite rightly about irresponsible retailers, and there are irresponsible retailers. But what you don't do is say, OK, but it is legal to sell all night to anybody, effectively. Any time of night, you can come in and buy this cheap drink. That actually makes it worse, not better. And it's not entirely the government's fault. I'm the first to say that. But they have been a party, as it were, to the worsening of the problem.
How do we resolve this, then? I mean, where do we begin? I mean, do you crack down on the shopkeepers? I mean...
Oh, of course you must enforce that. I mean, one of the problems we've had is actually the number of prosecutions against shopkeepers hasn't been enough, you know. And so you've got to toughen up on that. You've also got to toughen up on people on other aspects of it. You often find older youngsters go in and buy for younger ones. You find people actually acting as the go-between. There are all sorts of things. We have to talk to the retailers about some of the sort of what would you say, lost leaders, I suppose, where they sell alcohol, very strong alcohol, very low levels. All those but it's right across the board. You cannot say one gimmick will do it. You've got to start with the family, go through the schools, deal with the streets, and deal with the retailers.
We'll leave it there, David. Thanks very much, Steve, for being with us.
Thank you.
You're watching the News Hour on GMTV. This morning's headlines. Breaking news in the last few minutes. A 21-year-old man's been arrested in connection with the stabbing of 14-year-old schoolgirl Jessica Knight in Chorley. She is still critically ill this morning.
The Brokeback Mountain star Heath Ledger has been found dead in his New York apartment. Police say the 28-year-old's death appears to be drug-related.
And up to 20,000 police officers are expected in London this morning for a mass march and rally in a protest over pay. We get more on Heath Ledger now because Carla Romano's in LA for us this morning. And Carla, you met Heath Ledger a number of times. What was he like?
Very sweet, Penny, and you can't say that about many actors out here. And it's such a gentleman. That's something that I always walked away thinking whenever I met him. Very un-LA, a big Aussie guy with just a bit of a sensitive side, I think. And so not a party kind of guy, always kept himself kind of below the radar. Family man, doting dad to his 2-year-old daughter Matilda from his relationship with Michelle Williams. Now, they broke up last year, so who knows if that has anything to do with what happened. I first met him during the promos for Brokeback Mountain. His performance blew me away on that. I couldn't wait to speak to him. And it was very clear to me, Penny, that he was not in this for the fame and fortune. He just wanted to be a really, really good actor. He wanted to be the best. This is a bit of our chat together in Venice.
How difficult was it for you to do this movie? Because, you know, it's, for a straight man, it's not the obvious choice.
It was very difficult for obvious reasons, which is, I guess, why I chose to do the movie. Is I get bored very easily, and I like to test myself, and I like to further myself as an actor, and I was very aware that I was going to have to do so in order to portray this story and character.
As you say, he seems like a really, really nice man. And he just finished filming, hadn't he? Just finished filming a remake of Batman, I think.
He has. I mean, this guy's career was just about to go through the roof, Penny. And as you saw in that interview, there's just such a shyness to him. You know, he absolutely hates the limelight. I remember after the interview, I said to him, "Are you okay? You seem a little bit nervous." He said, I hate doing interviews. I just get so nervous. I can't stand it. I just want to act. All this other stuff around it just makes me feel really ill at ease." And I remember thinking it was just such a sort of sweet difference. It was very, very sweet. Hollywood is in shock. It's reeling. Mel Gibson has given his condolences, as have various other actors, and people here in Hollywood, I think, just are incredibly sad.
I mean, it's really a shame that an actor or anyone for that matter dies. And God, I don't know what to say. It's always a shock.
Oh my God, he's such a good actor. He's only young. Can't believe it. You know, I was looking forward to the new Batman movie coming out and seeing him in it, and it's crazy.
I don't know how to explain it. I'm like personally, like almost hurt by it. I didn't know him or anything, but I respected him as an actor and as a person.
Yeah, a very sad story, Carl. I mean, just 28 years old. Thank you very much anyway for bringing us up to date. Thank you.
That's it from the two of us for the news hour. Anyway, Fiona and Ben with you next.
And after this little break, it's the weather with Andrea.